time. Once again, the hashtag you can use to reach us is hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter, and of course our official station handle at KBC Channel 1. So right now we want to get started with the first discussion for the day, and this is all about the cooperative movement here in Kenya. Now this is not just any other movement. The cooperative movement is a movement to reckon with, considering it is ranked first in Africa, and this is the Kenyan cooperative movement. It is ranked first in Africa and 7th in the world. So trust and believe this is a movement that, carries so much weight when it comes to matters concerning the nation. And to help us with this discussion, to just better understand the policies that go into, governing these cooperative movements, we have two guests with us in studio. I'll start with to my immediate left. We have the Principal Secretary for the State Department for Cooperative, Mr. Cooperatives, Mr. Ali Nur Ismail. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
And of course, to the extreme left, we have Mr. Evans Kigendo. He is the National Chairman for the Hazina Sacco Society. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Once again, if you are a member of, Hazina Sacco, if you have any questions or any clarifications that you may need in regards to the cooperatives here in Kenya, please send them through. As simple or as complicated or as basic as they may be, this discussion could go a very long way in just helping you better understand what cooperatives are all about. The hashtag to use is hashtag Good Morning Kenya. Now, when we look at the cooperative movement here in Kenya, it is ranked first in Africa. What does that even mean for us as a country, looking at this, scope of dominance that we have in terms of cooperatives?
Thank you, Wamboy. Let me start by saying that, first of all, I'm very happy to be on this show to speak to the Kenyan people this morning about cooperatives. I think there are many people in Kenya who are members of the cooperative movement. Just very briefly, when we say Kenya is number one in Africa, why is it so? So let me just start by giving some very brief statistics. Yes. This is a sector that has more than 23,000 cooperatives registered as of now, and still continuing. It has about 14 million, slightly over 14 million members.
Yes.
It has assets in excess of 800 billion Kenya shillings. And when you look at the SACCOs alone, the savings that they have mobilized is in excess of 400 billion. And when you look at the fact that cooperatives started very early in Kenya, immediately after independence, this then explains why this country has actually had a head start compared to the rest of the continent.
Yeah.
So when you actually talk about cooperatives in Africa, I think the international community would like to start by looking at Kenya first, and then the rest follow. So it's something to be proud of. And I think I would say that probably more than 2/3 of the population of Kenya, one way or the other, are affected by cooperatives and have a livelihood source in cooperatives, either directly or indirectly. In terms of employment, if I could just continue with a bit of the statistics, in this sector you have about you have more than 500,000 Kenyans directly employed in the sector, and another 1.5, deriving their livelihood one way or the other, indirectly from the cooperative movement. So it's a big sector, it's a giant sector. And this is what we're here to talk about this morning.
Yes. Now, Evans, you are the chair of one of the biggest SACCOs that we have here in Kenya. And the fact that, this cooperative movement here in Kenya is ranked 7th in the world. What does that even mean for you as the chairman of one of the biggest SACCOs here in the country?
Thank you. As I have said, I'm Evans Kibagendi. I'm the national chairman of Hazina Sacco. I take this opportunity to greet my members and the cooperators in general.
Yes.
I want to say that we are very clear about what is happening in this country in cooperatives. I want to appreciate the ministry and all those stockholders who have been working hard for many years to ensure that the Kenyan's corporate sector is vibrant. What I want to say is that as cooperators, we really looking forward to see better governance in the cooperative sector. Also work together with the ministry, with the other apex body, so that we can be able to ensure that there is that vibrant and also dynamics in terms of growth and also operation of cooperatives sector.
Yes.
Because cooperative, if you go through the history and also the record, is that cooperatives are really supporting the economy of this country. And if you look at the development of the new agenda for the government on housing and refugee and others, cooperators are in the best position to ensure that they work with the government so that the project and the agendas can succeed. So we are ready to support the government. We are ready to bring in governance. We are ready to look at the national cooperative policy which has been brought forward by the ministry.
Yes.
We work together, but we have to be involved so that we look at how do we bring in the aspiration of members, the aspirations of cooperators, and also leaders in general should be involved so that we are able to jumpstart this policy to help us and also to help the government so that we can be number 2, number 3 in the world.
Yes. Now, Bonapias, looking at, we've just heard from what Evans has said that, the cooperatives play a critical role when it comes to the national development. And of course, this both involves the county and the national government. As of now, how is this the relationship between the cooperatives and the national and county governments?
I think, let me first of all give a little bit of a background in terms of the context. As you recall, cooperatives has always been a national function. We have had a policy which has been guiding the sector, which was done in the year 1997. The theme of that policy at that time was the promotion of cooperatives, cooperatives in a liberalized economy. You remember that's around the time when the Kenyan economy was liberalized. So that is the policy that has actually guided the sector ever since. Then in 2010, we had the Constitution of Kenya, which created 2 levels of government, the devolved structure. So really, even though we had a policy, the policy that we had was not one that was cognizant of the devolved structure of government as per our Kenyan Constitution 2010. And therefore, this new policy largely seeks to really align the cooperative sector with this devolved structure of government, and it spells out, as I will talk about later, the roles between the 2 levels of government. In terms of the relationship, as you have asked very directly, of course, we all know in this country that devolution, when it started with a little bumpy ride at the beginning. There was a bit of push and pull, and I would say also there was a bit of misunderstanding. But I think over time,
the challenges of a whole new concept.
Yes, things have smoothened out. Forums have been created to be able to discuss issues that have arisen. Of course, you remember that we had the Transitional Authority, and now we have the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, which is the forum through which issues that may arise on both sides of government are actually discussed. So largely with regard to the corporate sector specifically, I think I would say that the relationship is fairly healthy. And as and when there are issues, and there are a few here and there, we engage ourselves through the IGTRC, and we're able to come together with the Council of Governors and be able to discuss those issues.
Mr. Evans, do you agree with the sentiments of the peers here?
Yes, I totally agree, because when you look at that coordination, it's very important for the growth of the sector. And initially we had those discontent between the 2 levels. But I believe if you look at the new national policy that has been developed, it is very clear how they will be working. The national government has a bigger role, which is well spelled, and also the county government has also a bigger role to grow the circles from the county level. That is a very good thing that has been done, given that we need to grow and we need to coordinate in terms of helping the movement to achieve our aspiration.
Yes. Now, when it comes to we'll be getting to the national development policy, the policy in itself. But before we get to that, when you look at the management of cooperatives here in Kenya, before there used to be the government used to play an advisory role, but it stepped back and left the management. And when it comes to the whole organization and responsibility to the cooperatives themselves, how is that looking now in terms of even the governance within the cooperatives?
I believe. If you look at what is happening now, we have challenges. We have circles which are doing very well. We have circles that have really taken up governance as a very important aspect of growth. And still the ministry and the State Department has a role to ensure that all circles comply with the basic requirement of governance. So as much as we can say that, SACCOs, first of all, let's understand, SACCOs are private organization that deals with the public good. The government is there to complement and bring up laws that is good for the governance of the SACCOs. Yeah. So they are not they are limited to their involvement, because there is nothing. This is members pooling resources together for the purpose of growing the economy and social and culture. So it's important that if they give us the framework, good guidance, it will be very easy for us to manage it. And also, you have seen they also want to move in and even give us some regulation on leadership, who is supposed to be a leader. So I concur in totality that leadership should be well organized, should be guided, so that at the end of the day, we don't lose this great sector that has really improved the people, the economy, and we want to move forward. So it's important that the government complement the manager. As much as we are independent, as much as we are managing our SACCOs, we need the guidance. We need the government, so that we never know. Leaders are leaders. There are those who might come in and waste the assets of the SACCOs and also do things that are not good for the members, because ultimately we are looking at that saving of members. How do we safeguard that? So for me, as Asina SACCO, we are open and we are ready for regulation. We are ready for supervision. We are ready. Only what we may need is that we need to be involved, particularly in issues of regulation and new laws. The SACCOs, because as much as we are apex bodies, it's very good to work for us, but we need to put input, because we understand the challenges. We understand what is there, and we are getting issues from members every day on how we can better the sector and how we can improve the cooperative movement. So we are ready, and I assure you that Asina SACCO, and I'm sure most leaders who are now taking, because the SACCOs of 90s is not the SACCO of 2019. We are corporate, we are serious, we have enhanced all the requirement of a corporate management. I mean, systems and other things, we are just operating like another big and ISO certified institution, and that's where we have to go. And that is what the government is telling us. Do good, will not interfere. But when we don't do good things, definitely you will not see the government seeing members' funds being wasted by a few leaders. Yeah. So I support, and we support, that we need the government, we need to work together in order to improve the livelihood of our members and the savings that they have made through very difficult situation.
Yes, you'd like to add on?
Yeah. If you allow me, one boy, to chip in. Yeah. I think I agree with Evans that cooperatives are largely private enterprises. These are enterprises that using the cooperative model, which is based on 7 principles, such as these are members who have come together voluntarily to associate for their socio-economic and cultural benefits. And it operates on the 7 principles, which are universal globally, under the auspices of the International Cooperative Alliance. And one of them is democratic member control, member economic participation, education and training, concern for the community in which you do business. Yeah. All these are the cooperative principles. But I think it's important for us to understand, as Evans has said, that even though they are private enterprises, so members coming together and mobilizing savings, there's an overriding public interest. What is that public interest? These members are mobilizing savings and they're actually putting it together. Now, the moment those savings have got a problem and they are not there, as you will come to find, and as Evans has said, a few have had problems, then really the government is the one that will be blamed for not taking care of. So because of that public interest, because any institution that actually collects public money, even banks are private institutions, but why is CBK there to regulate? Because so that those savings of the public are actually protected. Yes. That's where the government comes in, and it is. But otherwise, government tries to create that enabling environment so that corporates can continue with their enterprises, and it actually does not interfere a lot because it will rather, as you will see in the new policy, allow them to self-regulate themselves. But in the real world, we know, because of issues of leadership, because of other issues, we find that public money sometimes, or members' money, can get lost. That is where government comes in to do the regulation.
But even as the government comes in, there's only so much that the government can do, because, you know, the heavier burden falls on the cooperative itself. Now, what is being done to just ensure that the public interest is maintained, there's openness, honesty, and social responsibility on your end as, you know, part of the cooperative movement?
Thank you. That's a very good question that needs to be really articulated by all cooperatives. One, as leaders, we have an obligation. And it's high time that leaders in cooperative movement are guided and understand that they are just been given an eland. And it's, as you look, as you can even refer to the laws of the cooperative laws and also the new national policy draft, is that there is that inductment and education and training. So even the delegates and members should entrust the leadership of their circles to people who have quality, people of integrity, people who have been tested. Not just anybody can be brought to manage the circle. And we should be reliable at all times. We look at the policies, we look at mitigation, risk mitigation of our operation, because we must understand these funds that we are having has a specific role and requirement. It's not a business like any other business. This is a fund that has been given to you as leaders to manage for the purpose of helping the members by pulling together and getting these funds and getting some management returns through some low interest. So we should not be able to look at those funds as fund that, okay, let me give an example of Asina Sacco. Out of our 7.5 billion that we have as a Sacco, nearly 3/4 of that, 4.7 billion, it is deposit. So we have no money that we can say belong to Asina that we should be able to invest in securities that are not safe. That money, it should be safeguarded, because most of the bulk of the fund that we have as assets belongs to members. And that's what deposits. And these are people who have saved their money because of their future ideas. Kenyans are being taxed a great deal. Out of the money that they have been taxed, they offer to save some of these monies. And therefore, as leaders, we have a responsibility to know that we must totally safeguard and take care of this fund, internally and externally. Spending, we must have a very clear work plan, very clear spending limit, so that we don't go beyond and do things that are not required under the law and under the guidance of the ministry. I want to thank, first of all, the ministry, and that's the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative, and most of the State Department and the PS here, and the former PS who was there shortly, because they have been really, and the Commission of Cooperative and SASLA at the same time, who are now the regulator of deposit taking, in that they have been able to give us guidance. And leadership has been a very big problem. And I think with the new law, I, as a senior, and I'm sure the many leaders who are watching from their places, we need to ensure that leaders are people of integrity, people who have knowledge, people who are able to understand the operation of financial status, so that we are able to give our members a hope of saving and hope of continuity in the corporate movement. Because, Bwana PS, what I understand is that if we are not able, if SACCOs are going to have problems, we are not going to have proper guidance and proper control of these funds. Members will be looking for another investment vehicle, and they will be moving out. So it is a risk. Every time we are leaders, we must understand that we are being watched. We must understand that we are the role model, and we should be able to manage these funds and improve our circles respectively, so that at the end of the day, we market the cooperatives as an avenue, vehicle, whereby members can pool all their extra funds for tomorrow's. Because these members get a pension when they retire by saving so much. So it's important that as leaders, we take responsibility and we safeguard and try to do business that are safe and to work very consciously. Not to move in because so-and-so is doing this, you open up. We have challenges in the SACCO movement. We have a lot of challenges in terms of fraud, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of system failure, in terms of so many. That's why we are working very closely with the ministry, and we are trying to see on how do we seal this, how do we mitigate these risks, so that at the end of the day, we have a vibrant, we have a successive movement, but leadership we need to own and ensure that we safeguard the funds of our members.
Especially considering you have a financial base that is almost going to be hitting $1 trillion very soon.
Yeah.
So those are not figures that you can have people mess around with, because the consequences will be of magnificent proportions. Now let's just quickly have a look at this National Cooperative Development Policy and what it's all about, to just better help our viewers understand what is going to just what some of the changes that's going to bring, that are going to ultimately be of benefit to every member from all the different circles that are there.
Okay, thank you, Omboy. First of all, let me start by saying that tomorrow, Friday, at the KICC, between 9 o'clock up to 1 o'clock, we have the stakeholders, public and stakeholders validation forum for the National Cooperative Development Policy. So I want to, on air, request members of the public and all the stakeholders to come in large numbers and to actually give us their view. We also downloaded the policy on the ministry's website, www.industrialization.go.ke. And also we have requested the public that if they have views that they like to send via email to the State Department of Cooperatives, to send them through ps.ushirika@gmail.com. Those are all the avenues, so you can come physically. You can actually send it via email. You can even submit memorandums if you so wish, and bring it to us physically on the 17th floor of NSSF building, Block A, on the 17th floor. Now, as I said earlier, the policy really is a policy that provides a framework for the cooperative sector to thrive and to grow, and also a framework that enables the county government and the national government to be able to work together following the promulgation of the Constitution, and therefore the devolved structure. Now, in terms of the, and therefore, so it seeks to align the structure, the cooperative structure, or sector for that matter, with the new constitutional dispensation of the devolved structure. So number one, it provides policy and legislation framework. Now, based on this devolved structure, that is number one. And probably when I have just mentioned them briefly, I can also talk about what
we'll be
each
getting
one
to the nitty-gritties.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but just looking at the overall theme, which is about promoting cooperative societies for industrialization. What does that basically or essentially mean for the cooperative movement here in Kenya? What changes are being made towards that end? Yeah,
there are changes, of course, at the policy level.
Yeah.
There are changes. There's a clear policy and legislation framework in terms of what does the county government do, what does the national government do. Number two, it has a structure in terms of the, right now we have some 4-tier structure.
System,
we have maintained, yes, we have maintained the same, and I will speak about them a little more detail later. It introduces another level, you know, in the structure. The cooperatives, because you asked about the theme, it does provide opportunities for cooperatives to thrive through agro-processing and value addition, and therefore contribute to the whole portion of industrialization. Then it does provide some framework for investment and financial activities, and also the policy provides some proposals on regulation, and it also proposes has certain proposals, and these are just proposals. Of course, the stakeholders will have to discuss and finally agree. It has proposals on issues of term limits and then education and training, so that there is accurate data, and therefore it does have a structure in which we work with research institutions, universities, and many others. So in a nutshell, those are some of the highlights of the policy. Then I can speak to them in a little more detail later on. Yes.
Now, just looking at some part of the content that is in this policy, there is the policy that identifies challenges that inhibit growth from the national government perspective, the county government perspective, and of course the relevant stakeholders. From where you stand as part of the cooperative divide, what are some of these challenges that have been inhibiting growth that are constantly there and need to be done away with from the national government point of view, looking at the county government as well?
Thank you. When looking at the policy and the challenges you have just asked, is that the issue like for working relationship between the county and the government will be sorted out. Those have been the challenges.
What challenges exactly
for example,
are there as of now?
What we used to experience, I believe even before the policy, they have been working to ensure that there is that coordination. But when we started, there was a lot of problem in terms of who do you report to and how do you carry on your business. At times we used to be told we are supposed to pay county government licenses and many others. But to us, I think as cooperative, it has not been a big issue because we have a role as, the county and the national government have allowed to give us regulatory and supervision. And that supervision, we've never missed it. But when I go deeper into the other challenge that we've been facing is about the apex body. You find that it was not very clear to understand how they complement our development. But if you look at the policy, and this is, I will just ask the PS, that as much as once we go through the process of this policy, we also want you to look at these apex and try to restructure them in that cooperators, we have a role to suggest in any governance in the movement, so that when issues are being articulated, all policies or suggestions are being made to the government or to be part of the regulation or supervision items, they should go through a process whereby the cooperators, through the leaders, are given a chance to share and discuss of subjects before they are put in a policy to do what? To be implemented. This will help us to come up with a policy that is well researched and a policy that is going to be very successive. Because, okay, the apex body are there to stand for us, but they have been dormant, some of them, for a long time. As we move with the new policy, we need them to be looked at so that they are put involving, particularly to us as cooperators leaders, we are able to give these suggestions.
So and they haven't been as in touch with the cooperatives as they ought to have been?
It has not been very smooth.
Okay.
When we just get to hear at the last minute, and actually the ministry and the other regulators like Cooperative Commission and the SASRA, they are ready to give us a feedback and tell us this is what we are doing. But the way we've been working is that there was very limited time for us to be involved in any changes that we just find some news in the paper. I can give an example like the social impact membership. It came and it was a big thing, so we had to move out of our offices to go and try to appeal to leaders, and I thank the ministry, the state cooperative and the others who really worked at even them. I think this thing was not well structured in terms of the process. They really helped us because through them we were able to be given a chance and try. I think even the same is not now. It has to be given a different approach from the ministry before it comes back. So that's what we are saying. That coordination and linkage has to be very clear so that anything that is coming out is researched. Also, another thing that I can talk about is about the challenges of some circles. God has been good to some circles like Asina. We are liquid. God has been good. we've been doing business and safeguarding the fund well. Leaders who have been there have been very, very serious in terms of saving and taking care of the funds. But there are some SACCOs who are struggling. Others through poor management, others through maybe liquidity. So they have come up with sharing, and also having a chance whereby cooperators will be lending one another. The problem we had is that you cannot lend money to a cooperative society. You don't know, you don't have the power, you don't have the mechanism on how you can get your money. There's no assurance. So we better invest in Coop Bank, our extra funds. We invest in securities. Other securities are very sound than giving the corporate. But if the ministry will come up with the modalities on how we can rent, the corporate can borrow from one another, and we are assured of a return, then they will be vibrant. The weaker corporate society will get help from the strong, so that at the end of the day will be growing. Systems and the e-COP platform has been also the biggest problem. Others are in manual, others are in digital.
The tech bit of it.
So those are the challenges, but I believe with the new vibrant thought that has been brought by the peers and the ministry in general, we believe that we are going to work together. We are going to work and try to see this small challenge that we've been having. They have been able to be so. We have so much to share, and that's why, as the peers have said, we have a forum tomorrow to discuss, but we'll request for a very better way of managing. Like now, immediately after this, I will be sharing with my members, with my board of directors, and all the delegates on this, and they give me the feedback. And these are the members I represent. This feedback is what I'm going to share, whether it's possible or not.
All right. Now, just echoing what he is saying, from
Yes.
issues to do with the challenges, communication with who to report to. Is it the county government? Is it the national government? That back and forth. Issues to do with, restructuring the apex body, consultation, or when changes are being made. Now, with the coming of this policy, are these some of the issues that are going to be addressed in terms of regulation and rationalizing the roles of the national and the county government?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Because the policy, I think even though there have been challenges, as the chairman has said, cooperatives have still been growing. But there have been challenges, is correct, because when roles are not clearly defined as to who does what, there's an issue. Yeah. Because there's an issue of who do I report to, who do I speak to. Yeah. And the broad structure has been there, but I think the detail, as a result of this divorce structure, there have been a few things that have not been clear. In the policy, we are very clear that we are saying that the national government is largely responsible for policy and legislation. All right. It is responsible for standardization. And the county governments are responsible for the supervision, day-to-day promotion, licensing. Okay. You get the point?
The county is more in touch with them
on the day-to-day operations, because largely they operate in counties. Okay. And so they do the supervision, they do the promotion, they do the licensing, they will even do the provisional registration initially, and then the final registration will be done by the ministry. Okay.
Now, when it comes
to... So there's a bit of clarity there.
Yeah, yes. At least that is creates some clarity for even the cooperatives themselves to feel to operate in a more conducive environment. Now, when it comes to non-deposit taking SACCOs, the 2nd of December last year, there was a task force that was put together to just, prepare regulations and frameworks for how these businesses will be operating in Kenya. What is the situation and what is the status on that as of now?
Okay. The SACCOs are in different categories. Or rather cooperatives are in different categories, and they're in every sector: housing, agriculture, financial cooperatives. And so the SACCOs are the financial cooperatives. Currently, 175 SACCOs are regulated by the SACCO Societies Regulatory Authority, SASRA. These are the deposit-taking SACCOs. These are SACCOs that have huge deposits. They have done a lot of loans, such as Hazina, I would say. But there are other SACCOs that are not under the regulation of SASRA. Ideally, as per the Act, all SACCOs should be actually regulated by SASRA. But as you know, SASRA, as a regulator, unlike other regulators in other financial sectors, is relatively young. I think it's about 7 to 8 years old, and therefore, in terms of the capacity, both human resource and financial, it's not there. So it cannot have taken on the entire financial cooperatives because there are very many, the circles are many. So we are now saying through these intended amendments for the Societies Act regulations that even though they don't have, they are not deposit taking, or they don't have what we call a FOSA. A FOSA is a front saving activity. It's those circles that actually have quasi-banking halls. You can come, you can deposit, you can withdraw. So they're more or less like banks. Those are the deposit taking. Now we have many other huge circles that are actually non-deposit taking circles, but which hold a lot of money for the public. And we are saying through these regulations, any circle that has deposits ranging from 100 million Kenya shillings and above, they will have to come under the ambit of the regulation of SASRA, notwithstanding that actually they are not deposit taking, they are non-deposit taking circles.
That will be a requirement that cuts across.
Yes, yes. But you know, these amendments or intended amendments of these regulations are now going through stakeholder participation process. And when finally they are gazetted by the minister and everything has been agreed upon, then they will come into effect.
All right. Yes. All right. So tomorrow.
Just on what the PS is saying, this is a very good step that they have taken. Because as a regulator, I work with the Insurance Regulatory Authority. It's not prudent the authority to regulate only companies, insurance company, but the brokers and agents are regulated by, they are not regulated. So I think this is a way forward, because the regulators is there to give some guideline and guidance. So it's important. I really support this. When I went through the policy, I realized we've been even giving some suggestion to that effect, that indeed it's important that the SASRA can take over the entire corporate so that we are together. We have the same focus as cooperative sector than having another one being subjected in a different regulation and another one from a different regulation.
A more centralized sense of regulation.
That is a prudent idea. And Bwana PS, I think that's a good focus for the sector.
All right.
Thank you. Well, boy, maybe if you just allow me.
Just briefly, because
yes, I know because of time. So if we say the deposit taking circles are tier 1, and we're now bringing tier 2, which is probably another 100 to 200 circles, which are non-deposit taking but have huge deposits, we are then coming to look at the regulations for tier 3, the rest of the circles.
But there are those that will be cutting across regardless of the tiers.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, tomorrow there will be, tell us a bit more about what will be happening tomorrow for the benefit of, the relevant stakeholders, especially the cooperatives.
Yes. Very quickly, because I just want to say a little more about I've talked about the policy and legal framework. Then in terms of the structure, we have the primary cooperatives, we have then the union, then we have the federation. This is a new structure that we are, and then of course the apex, which is the Cooperative Alliance of Kenya. So that is the structure. In terms of regulation, we have SASRA, which will regulate all financial cooperatives, and then we also proposing another regulator to regulate all the other cooperatives in the country. Then, of course, I talked about education and training. So in a nutshell, that's what the policy is talking about briefly. Tomorrow, we will now present. This process has been ongoing since last year, and I would even say probably late 2017, just to really reach, because it's a huge sector. And therefore, tomorrow, we're almost reaching the climax. And we are now going to put before these stakeholders the final document, which they will now go through with us, and they will tell us where they have issues. We will discuss, get their views, both written and verbal. We see where we may need to take stock. And then after that, we will, if all is well, we submit the document to
Proceed.
cabinet.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the policy will be adopted. Yes.
And this will be between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.
And
tomorrow.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
Well, if you are part of, any SACCO, please be sure to just try and see what this policy is all about. It's available on the internet. You can go ahead and download it, have a look. If you agree or you do not agree, I believe you can be able to reach out using the email. Is it ps.ushirika@gmail?
Yes.
ps.ushirika@gmail.com. You can be able to send in any queries that you may have in regards to what the contents of these policies. If you do not agree with something or you need clarifications, go ahead and reach out, and believe you'll be better placed to make an informed decision moving forward on whether you agree with or do not agree with. Well, we are running short of time, but we cannot finish without just your final words to the greater public and to those who are not even in any cooperative society. Let me start with you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you. My closing words are that ASINA welcomes all members of the Republic of Kenya. And on the issue of the policy, I would wish to say that I've seen there's an area of development fund. We would like to be involved before surgery levies are passed, so that we don't really burden our members who are already highly taxed. And lastly, I want to thank all the cooperatives and ask them to continuously be people of integrity and give services to members who have given them a chance to lead. And thank you, KBC, and I pass my regards to members of ASINA SACCO who works with the KBC where we are now.
All right.
Good morning, Kenyans.
All right. Thank you so much. Bon appetit.
Thank you very much. In my closing remarks, I would like to say this, that, and I want to touch on the governance issue as part of my closing remarks, which is really that, yes, I think it hasn't been all roses, and we have had a number of governance issues in the sector because some SACCOs or some cooperatives have had problems. But I want to tell the Kenyan people that the majority of the cooperatives are doing very well. They are thriving. They have mobilized huge savings, and the government is doing everything possible to make sure that those hard-earned savings are properly protected. In fact, in this regard, I would say we recently signed an MOU with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which seeks to tackle governance issues in the sector. And we're already working on an implementation framework to make sure that actually governance issues, both in terms of preventive and actually taking action where malpractices have taken place, are really tackled, head on.
Yeah.
So I want to assure the Kenyan people, the few corporates that have had issues, we're dealing with them. The bulk of them are doing very well, and Kenyans don't need really to be worried.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, right. We can trust and believe that our funds at the end of the day are in good hands, and they are regulated and they are being managed properly, at least for the greater percentage, and more is being done towards this end. We have been talking about the cooperative movement here in Kenya, considering, just from what we have heard, it is the first in Africa, 7th in the world, about 23,000 SACCOs registered here in Kenya, with about more than 14 million people, members registered. So trust and believe this is a movement that requires this national cooperation from both the national government, county governments, cooperatives, and you as a member. So, the whole question of public participation has been made open. Be sure to be part of this, policy that is being put together to be able to help protect all these funds, considering that the financial base that the cooperatives hold is at 800 billion.
Sure.
We'll soon be hitting a trillion, so that is not; those are not figures that can afford to be messed around with. We have been speaking with the Principal Secretary for State Department for Cooperatives, Mr. Ali Nur Ismail. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
And of course, we have Mr. Evans Kibagendi. He is the National Chairman of the ASINA SACCO Society. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Good Morning Kenya does continue. Remember, today is Entertainment Thursday. We remember, as we told you, we will be having spoken word artists coming through. We have a poetry lined up for you, so don't go anywhere. And of course, more artists, all about celebrating the entertainment industry and supporting our very own here. So do not go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, or rather a musical break. One of those will be coming up just not too long. But in the meantime, keep talking to us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter, at Jane Mamboy, at Ramaguko, at Raymanyara, and at Dori Narange, who will be checking us in with us in not too long to just tell us the situations on the road. Don't go anywhere. This is Good Morning Kenya.